Aliens in Zimbabwe. As crazy as that may sound, on the 16th of September 1994, something unusual happened at a small rural school near Harare, at the Ariel School in Ruwa. More than 60 children reported witnessing a craft descend from the sky. Not distant lights, not a rumor passed around town, but a clear, close encounter right in front of them. They described a disc-shaped object, figures dressed in black, pale, waxy faces, large dark eyes, no sound, no words, just presence. For most, this is where disbelief takes over, but for those children and for those who listened carefully at the time, it was something far more real. This episode isn't about belief systems or theories, it's about testimony. It's about hearing firsthand what happened that day and deciding for yourself what it may mean. You're listening to the Skyburst Podcast. My name is Zane, and today we return to Ruwa, Zimbabwe to revisit the Ariel School Incident. In the days leading up to September 16th, 1994, Southern Africa was already witnessing something unusual. Across Zimbabwe, reports began to surface of strange lights in the sky. Eyewitnesses described objects without wings moving silently in patterns that defied explanation. These weren't isolated sightings. Even airline pilots en route to Johannesburg reported visual contact with unidentified objects. Not debris, not meteorites, objects maintaining altitude, maneuvering with precision, and without sound. The state broadcaster, ZBC, and international media like the BBC began to take notice, not because they understood what was happening, but because too many people were saying the same thing. A pattern was emerging, but no one expected what would follow next.
Hundreds of people today phoned the ZBC saying they sighted an unidentified flying object.
It was a bright, radiant light. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
It was the absence of noise I didn't like.
People from all over Zimbabwe were phoning the BBC to say, we've seen something weird.
There were three of us that saw it. Myself, the co-pilot, and the pilot in the other aircraft.
No wings, no nothing. Shiny oval thing.
Ariel School, 19th September 94. Could you tell me what you saw on Friday?
The silver thing in amongst this clump of trees.
We saw this black figure running.
His face was like this and his eyes were down here.
I just thought it was some kind of alien from a different planet.
When you looked at those children, they were absolutely credible. And whereabouts was it?
In the trees over there.
There was a big group of kids pointing and making a noise and shouting and screaming.
The panic spread. Am I safe or am I not safe?
He's a Harvard psychiatrist.
Meet Dr. John Mack, a believer in aliens from outer space.
We came away convinced that an extraordinary event occurred here.
I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world.
How did that get communicated to you?
It came through my head.
Somehow there was a message about pollution from the way he was staring?
Yes.
I was just a hard-ass journalist. I could handle war zones, but I could not handle this UFO thing.
I mean, I never felt this could derail my career.
The dean wanted to know, what is he doing?
Angels, yes. Extraterrestrials, no.
John is lost at this time.
This journey is literally to pick up the pieces and put them back together.
Oh my gosh.
I was right on the logs when it actually happened.
We are the ones who drew those funny pictures.
Something that I'll never ever forget.
I've drawn this again.
But I usually kept it quiet.
People think you're crazy.
My husband doesn't even know about it.
You feel so alone in society.
Why is it that we tend to want to shrink this powerful phenomenon to our notions of reality rather than being able to stretch ourselves to expand what we know and to admit that we don't know?
Would you like to see him again?
Yes.
And if you saw him again, what would you do?
I'll ask him some questions.
What would you like to ask him?
I'll ask him what is he doing on Earth and what does he want with us.
Amid the growing number of Skywatcher reports, one stood apart. a private school in Ruwa, about 20 kilometers outside of Harare, reported something that went beyond lights in the sky. The Ariel School claimed an object had landed, and more than 60 children had witnessed it. What they described wasn't a distant shape, it was immediate, present, a disc-like craft near the edge of their playground, and figures, humanoid in shape, but not distinctly human in presence. For veteran BBC correspondent Tim Leach, who had covered war zones across Africa, this wasn't a story he had prepared for, but it was one he couldn't ignore.
And then I got this call from Ariel School Ruwa that the children had seen a UFO landing, and these funny men in body-clean suits, black suits, weird. I went roaring out there in the car with my sound man.
On arrival at the Ariel School, reporters and investigators spoke with the children. Independently, the students gave remarkably consistent accounts. A disc-shaped craft had landed amongst the Masasa trees. Small beings described as having large black eyes, pale skin, and wearing tight black suits had approached. They moved back and forth near the tree line, watching the children silently. The details varied slightly from child to child, but the core elements remained strikingly consistent. These were not vague, dreamy recollections. These were vivid memories of something very specific. For many, this was the first time they had ever heard of UFOs. Yet their descriptions reflected an experience that was both real and unsettling.
Did you all see something?
Yes.
What's your name?
I'm Daniel Mandy, and I saw this silver thing in amongst this clump of trees with this one thing sitting on the side and another thing sort of like running up and down the top.
It had a round top and it was flat like that around the sides.
What was around the side?
Just so like a platform coming around the
Platform.
side.
Did you see anything else?
Yes, we saw a black man running around. Just
a little man or what?
From where we looked, he was about this small, but we were quite way away. So he was about our size.
What did you see?
I saw something silver on the ground amongst the trees and a person in black. And that's all I saw.
You saw a person alongside the silver thing?
Yes.
Have you heard about UFOs before this?
No.
You didn't know anything about it, so it was something quite new to you?
Yes.
Were you afraid?
Yes.
As word spread, so did the attempts to explain it all away. Meteor showers, space debris, atmospheric reflections. But none of these explanations fit what had taken place in Ruwa. Meteorites don't hover among the trees. Debris doesn't approach children on foot. Cynthia Hind, Africa's leading UFO researcher at the time, arrived at the scene, armed with a Geiger counter and years of experience. She sought to document the facts. Radiation readings were inconclusive, but the sheer volume and clarity of the testimonies were harder to dismiss. For once, the simple answers weren't holding up.
Yes.
Nobody should panic. We don't know what it is, and it could be just there was a Russian satellite went up on the 27th of August, and it's a possibility something came down, but it would not account for the figure you saw. But I think for the moment, you should keep everybody away until we've had some analysis, of what's going on.
Words can be doubted, dismissed as imagination. But drawings have a different weight to them. Each child was asked to draw what they had seen individually, without prompting. What emerged were images of disc-shaped craft, of beings with large, black almond-shaped eyes, pale, smooth faces, and form-fitting black suits. The drawings varied in style, but the core elements were unmistakably similar. For investigators, it was no longer a question of if something had been seen. The question had become, what exactly had these children encountered?
I certainly believe the children with some extremely interesting pictures, and there's certainly some of the things they've told me they couldn't have known about. Impossible.
I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was easy to put down because that's exactly what I'd seen. So, you know, something that I'll never ever forget.
For skeptics, obviously the most convenient explanation was mass imagination, that one child had started a story and the rest had followed. But this theory unraveled quickly. The children had been interviewed separately. Their accounts came from different vantage points, different experiences of the same event. In fact, the subtle differences between their stories added to their credibility. Children described the same craft, the same beings, but from their own unique positions on the playground. It wasn't a rehearsed story, it was a collective experience, observed from multiple points of view. Dismissal, in this case, required a willful ignorance of the volume and consistency of testimony.
In '94, I was in grade 2 at the time at Ariel. My teacher was Mrs. Cheaple. What I can remember was we were playing around in the playground area. It was one of those rare occasions where the teachers were having a staff meeting, so it was quite a long break. We were happy to have those because it was more playtime. And there was like a flash of light, and it was bright silver, and everything it shot past.
At the time, I rember it well. We were on the field playing our football, and a friend of mine drove by and said, Luke, do you see that in the sky? What is that? What is that? So I was looking up and I saw it, and it was, for want of a better word, a UFO. I wasn't sure what it was, but it was a silver object that was in the sky, and we were both looking at it. And I only saw it for possibly a few seconds, and it seemed to move off a bit and then suddenly vanished. And we were both sort of standing there looking up saying, geez, what was that? But didn't put too much thought to it, and obviously went straight back to playing our football match. A few minutes later, there was a whole sort of commotion going on, and there was a whole bunch of kids down at the bottom of the playground.
We were sitting on one of the logs that we always sat on, eating our lunch, and I noticed that people were pointing at this one thing or something in the bush, and I got up to see what was going on because one person actually started crying, and like I said, because we were the older group on the playground, we all, people in my year, just were kind of concerned about what was going on with everyone else.
There was a big group of kids all sort of gathered right at the bottom of the playing field, pointing and making a noise and shouting and screaming. And I went up to them to sort of see what was going on and try to, calm everybody down. My initial thoughts were somebody had hurt themselves or something.
Okay, so if I was there, sort of say a couple of 100 meters up, it was right there. So it seemed to be right on the cross-country course.
I remember seeing 2 flashing lights, and I saw like a big silver, like a saucer kind of thing that was hovering, and then it landed or hovered on a stone. And I saw 2 figures come out, really black, but their face, you could actually see not much of their face, but it was really, really white in color.
Skin pigmentation was very, I don't know how you can, pale doesn't even, it looked plastic. It looked like someone who had too much Botox. Now when I think about it, I'm like, that's exactly what, at the time I didn't have a color or a word for it. But that's exactly what it looked like.
It was very smooth and soft looking. It looked like you'd slide right off. If you tried to touch him, he'd just, yeah.
I suddenly realized that he's not quite normal. I didn't actually know about UFOs and aliens at the time, so I just thought he was a strange person.
But it was the eyes that made him.
So that kind of shape, I think the eyes were obviously a lot more fluid, round, shiny, protruded.
Almost like rugby balls or American footballs. Huge eyes on the side of his face.
And so I looked over and sort of thought I could see something unusual going on in the bushes as well. And I was like, yeah, there is. There's got to be something. It looks like there's something there.
and the realization that there was something moving and it appeared to be coming towards us as well. That I felt scared at that point.
The panic spread. I was looking for my brother and sister to make sure that they were okay. And when I did have them, then we continued to look onward. They just seemed confused, like, what is going on? One moment we're playing, next moment everybody's looking, pointing, and everybody's in a panic. That was a little bit scary.
For the children involved, the encounter didn't end when the craft vanished. In the days and years that followed, many struggled with how to process what they had seen. Some spoke of being dismissed by adults, others were told to forget it entirely. Yet decades later, many of these witnesses recall the event with clarity, not as fantasy, not as a game, but as a defining moment in their childhood. For some, the experience carried emotional weight far beyond curiosity. It was a moment that shifted their understanding of reality itself.
I just turned 28. I ended a relationship. I was engaged for 6 years. You know, this whole topic definitely weighed on our relationship. So I moved in with my folks. I'm thankful that I'm here right now and with my family who supports me. As for future goals, plans, work, I have no idea. But I feel alone.
Cynthia Hind, already well known in the region for her methodical approach to unexplained aerial phenomena, documented the Ariel School case in detail. She wasn't there to sensationalize. She was there to document what the children had said in their own words. Armed with field experience and from other sightings across Southern Africa, she conducted interviews, took physical readings, and carefully compiled the evidence. Her conclusion was measured. She believed the children had seen something real. What that something was remained open to interpretation, but fabrication did not align with the data.
As an investigator, I've learned that if they tell exactly the same story, then there's corroboration. They've got together and they're doing it. But if they tell a similar story, but from different viewpoints, to me, that's the truth.
We saw two of them. One was standing in front of the ship, and then the other one had long hair. But the one who was standing in front, he didn't have any hair at all.
Show me with your hand how big the eyes
They
were.
were shaped like something like that.
Big head and big black eyes, and was dressed in a black bodysuit.
What did you think it was?
I don't know. I just thought it was some kind of alien from a different planet.
After looking at those, I definitely feel that they did see something.
What do you think that was?
I agree that it could be something that we are not common with. But to actually say that it was a UFO, I would be reluctant to make a decision like that.
Despite the overwhelming volume of testimony, mainstream media coverage remained hesitant. In 1994, stories of UFOs were often relegated to the fringe. Aerial anomalies could be reported, but encounters involving beings were largely ignored. For journalists like Tim Leach, this case was unlike anything he had covered. As a war correspondent, he had seen human conflict up close, but the Ariel incident challenged a different kind of boundary. It wasn't just hard to explain, it was hard to fit into a worldview that media outlets were comfortable presenting. The result? A story quietly sidelined. Despite the strength of its witnesses,
if you want to sustain a career in the BBC after having been in many war zones, you don't suddenly come up with a UFO story, which was absolutely waterproof. Then they just said, Tim's suffering from the stress and strains of all the war zones he's done. He's lost the plot. He's gone bonkers. I think that's when my career with the BBC ended. Gone. I think I lost my credibility because because you don't talk about these things.
Realizing the weight of what had been witnessed, Tim Leach reached out for expertise beyond journalism. He contacted Dr. John Mack, a Pulitzer Prize-winning psychiatrist from Harvard University, who had been researching the experiences of so-called contact phenomena. Dr. Mack's involvement marked a turning point. He approached the Ariel incident with a clinical rigor, conducting his own interviews with the children. For Mack, the consistency of the children's accounts, combined with their emotional responses, suggested a genuine experience had taken place. He wasn't interested in UFO mythology. He was interested in what happens when people experience something outside accepted reality and how societies choose to respond.
I could handle war zones, but I could not handle this UFO thing. It just didn't make sense. And that's when I had to call in extra help. Cynthia Hine put me in touch with Dr. John Mack, and I got his number at Harvard University.
Tim Leach from BBC Television News in Harare, Zimbabwe. Message for Dr. John Mack. This concerns a UFO sighting over a school where it hovered, landed, a black man got out, but of course we're having difficulty being taken seriously in spite of being the BBC. Please call me as soon as you can. Thank you.
Dr. John Mack approached the Ariel case not as a believer, but as a psychiatrist trained to listen. He interviewed the children with care, not with leading questions, not assumptions, simply creating space for them to describe their experience in their own words. What he found was striking. The children's emotional responses, their hesitation, their confusion, and their sincerity indicated a deeply real experience, regardless of how it might be explained. Mack's presence gave the case academic weight. For the first time, the story of Ariel School wasn't just a news item. It was being taken seriously by a respected scientific mind.
With his credentials as head of the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard, I sat up and took notice. That took it to another depth.
And the stories are consistent. There's some details that are not consistent, like that boy saying the 2 different days. Do you think it's possible that one imaginative child had a story and kind of stirred the rest of them?
I don't believe. I honestly believe they saw something, but for me to actually draw a conclusion as to what it is, I don't think I could do that at this point in time.
Okay. How many of them reported seeing the craft?
Something in the region of about 60.
Yeah.
More of them could have seen it, and they're just too embarrassed to talk about it, or we haven't had the grade 1s and 2s involved. Actually, there were 6 and 7-year-olds.
Right. How long would you estimate that the scene actually lasted?
So it took over about 10 to 15 minutes.
Really, that long? Did they describe any other sensory experiences like smell or sound or
nothing at all.
Anything of that kind?
Honestly, no. I don't think anybody's actually asked them that question.
You've talked with the BBC people and with Nikki Carter here before, right?
Yes.
Okay. But the experience is still fresh in your mind, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. What were you doing at the time?
Well, I was playing in the playground, and then we saw something silver, and then we quickly ran to the logs, and we saw a silver thing, and we saw a man standing next to it.
And what did he look like?
Well, he had big eyes that pointed.
Pointed big eyes. Can you, maybe you could just draw the head. What do you like to draw?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, put your chair up a little bit. These are what? What are you drawing here?
The eyes.
The eyes, okay.
And I couldn't see his nose and his mouth, but his nose was pretty small.
So the eyes were large, is that right?
Yes.
Did you look into the eyes? I mean, did you have a sense that you were...
No, all we saw was his eyes. They were black.
Black, but were they looking at you, or were you at him?
It seemed that he was looking at all of us.
Have you ever seen a UFO?
I never have. No.
I didn't see anything over there.
No nose? You didn't see a nose?
No. My heart kind of went faster and then slower and then faster and then slower, all at the same time.
Now, was that was excitement and
Yeah, excitement and scariness.
and scary and well, you said happy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy because
I saw something strange and something peculiar and something nobody had ever seen.
Haley, something scared you. Is that right?
Yes.
What scared you?
The noise.
What noise?
The noise that we heard in the air.
You heard a noise in the air?
Yes.
What was it like? Like a roar or a buzz or a hum or what kind of a noise?
It was like someone was blowing a flute.
And that scared you?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do when you were afraid?
I ran away from it.
Mm-hmm.
We told the teacher, but she said just forget about it.
Mm-hmm. So people who have these experiences are very serious about them. And I think that generally speaking, when something powerful, important, exciting, scary has happened, that it's useful to talk about it, to have open discussion. And it doesn't mean you have to impose a point of view, but it's not about what we believe. It's what their experience is and how they find the adults around them being receptive to that experience.
One of the more unsettling aspects of the children's accounts was not just what they saw, but what they felt. Several children described a kind of communication, not verbal, not even gestural, but a direct internal message. Some spoke of environmental warnings, visions of the earth in danger, a sense of urgency about the future of the planet. It's a theme that has surfaced in other so-called contact experiences, but for these young children living in rural Zimbabwe, it was not a narrative that they had been exposed to. The question remains, where did these ideas come from?
These eyes, did you look at them?
Yes.
What feeling did that give you when you looked in the eyes?
It made me shake a little.
Made you shake?
It was a terrifying feeling.
A what?
A terrifying.
A terrifying feeling. Yes. And what made it terrifying?
The way he was looking at me.
How did he look at you?
Strangely, like an old woman who hasn't seen a kid before.
Like an old what?
An old woman who hasn't seen a kid.
An old woman who hasn't seen a kid before?
She stares like this.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to do something. Try to just be in that feeling for a moment. Try to remember that terrifying feeling, okay? Can you do that? I know it's unpleasant, but nothing bad will happen, okay?
Okay.
And just try to tell me what that terror, what's in the terror. See what you find in the terror. What it might be about.
It was making me all scared. My heart was now starting to pump faster.
Mm-hmm.
And it was making me all woozy now.
Like woozy, yeah. Losing,
yes.
Like you were going to faint, you mean?
Yeah.
Did you faint?
No.
Yeah.
So then I was looking at him, right?
Yeah.
And then he was looking at me back. I couldn't just keep on looking at him, so I had to stop and I looked sideways. So he couldn't keep on making me feel faint.
But you kept looking?
Yes.
Why did you keep looking?
I don't know, something just attracted me to look at him.
Something attracted you? Uh-huh.
Yes. The other man, his eyes looked at me as if, I want to, things like that.
I want to what?
I want you.
I want you.
Yeah.
I want you in what? Like I want you to come with me, or
No, I want you to come with me. I want you to come.
Did you go with him, do you think?
No, only my eyes went with him.
Your eyes went with him.
And my feeling.
And your feeling went with him. So was there a part of you that wanted to go with him?
Yeah.
That felt like drawn to go with him?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you say what that felt like?
Again, scary and a little excited.
Yeah.
And a little I shouldn't go.
Yeah. And yet I want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Had you had those thoughts before this experience?
No.
No. And how did those thoughts come to you? Did they come to you from the craft or from...
From the man.
The man. And did the man say those things to you? How did he get that across to you?
Well, he never said anything. It's just that the face is the eyes.
Fungi, what do you imagine is his reason for visiting Earth?
I think it's about something that's going to happen.
Something that's going to happen?
Yes.
Like what?
There's pollution or something.
Pollution?
Yes.
And how did he get that idea of pollution across to you?
The way he was staring.
The way he was staring?
Yes.
Somehow there was a message about pollution from the way he was staring?
Yes. I think they want people to know that we're actually making harm on this world and we mustn't get too technologized.
How did that get communicated to you?
I don't know.
But somehow it did, isn't it?
Yeah, it came through my head.
Through your head? Did it, through words or?
My conscience, I think.
Your what?
My conscience.
It came to you through your conscience told you?
Yeah.
I mean, while you were in contact with the being, you mean, or
Well, the being was looking at me.
While it was looking at you.
To understand the Ariel incident, one must also understand its cultural context. Ruwa was not a place saturated with science fiction. These were children growing up in rural Africa with limited access to Western media tropes. Their descriptions weren't shaped by Hollywood. They were shaped by direct experience, interpreted through their own lenses of understanding. Dismissing the incident as imagination ignored the lived reality of these children. It also ignored the fact that similar accounts have surfaced globally across vastly different cultures. What took place in Ruwa wasn't isolated. It was part of a larger, more complex phenomenon that continues to resist easy explanation. For many of the Ariel witnesses, the hardest part wasn't the encounter itself. It was what followed. Disbelief, dismissal, a polite refusal by the adult world to take their accounts seriously. Some were told to stay quiet, others were laughed at. Over time, many simply stopped talking about what had happened. But memories don't fade that easily, and for some, the need to be heard has never gone away. The incident became a defining moment, not because of belief, but because of the silence that followed.
I mean, you just felt nobody really cared. Who do you talk to? How do you understand it? The people in my life that were supposed to be the closest and the support system, it didn't feel like it was there.
There was nobody there to say, now it's okay to talk about it. So we never did. And as children, you have a huge imagination. So you see those sort of things and not know what they are. And you're left with this, well, where am I? Limbo state of, am I safe or am I not safe? So it was, I think, as a protective mechanism, block it out, turn it off, don't go back to it.
I haven't really talked to anyone about it. I usually kept it quiet, because most people probably think I'm, a bit nuts.
You're not exactly going to bring up this kind of conversation at a bar or a restaurant or, people think you're crazy.
It's very hard. It's kind of strange, I guess, because they don't believe you. Some of my close friends know about it, but it's more like not a joke, but they're like, oh, you crazy type of thing, like laughter type of, like it's something funny something to laugh about.
If this had been 10 years ago, I wasn't in a place where I really wanted to talk about it. I just didn't want to be associated with that. I was very self-conscious.
So yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about it. It is.
Because it's not something that I bring up to anybody, ever. My husband doesn't even know about it.
Nearly 3 decades have passed since that September morning, but the Ariel School Incident continues to resonate. In recent years, the global conversation around UAPs and UFOs and government disclosure has shifted. What was once ridiculed is now being revisited with serious attention. Yet, amidst these high-level discussions, the voices of direct witnesses, like those children in Ruwa, remain as important as ever. Their accounts challenge our assumptions about reality, about what we accept as possible, and about how we respond when those assumptions are broken. Listening to these stories is not about proving anything. It's about acknowledging that some experiences refuse to fit into neat categories, and perhaps they never will. For some of the Ariel witnesses, returning to the school after decades brought a complex mix of emotions. Memories resurfaced, not just of the event, but of how it had shaped their lives. Some found validation in revisiting the exact spot where the encounter had occurred, while others were met with a bittersweet realization that while the physical location remained, the world had largely moved on. But for these witnesses, the past was not a closed chapter. It was something still unfolding, quietly, persistently.
To go back to Ariel means I get to go back to the spot where it happened. I don't know how I'm going to feel. I don't know what it's going to bring up, but I feel really blessed to be able to do that in my life. My family's religious, and they came to Africa for mission work. My brother and sister also attended Ariel. They were very traumatized about the event. Talking about it in a religious environment wasn't something that was allowed to be done. I was very quickly removed out of the situation, so it was pack up everything, and we flew into Canada. I didn't get to have the opportunity of growing up with the friends in that environment who had that occur to them. I'm looking forward to reconnect again. I haven't been back to Ariel for just over 20 years.
Encounters like the one reported at Ariel are not just events. These are experiences that ripple through a person's life. For many of the children, there was a struggle to reconcile what they had seen and the reality they were told to accept. Some carried a sense of isolation, while others questioned their own memories. But through it all, the experience remained vivid. Dr. John Mack often spoke of the psychological aftermath, not as trauma, but as an expansion of worldview, an encounter with something profoundly other that left a permanent imprint. The Ariel case was no exception. What happened in Ruwa is not unique. Across continents and cultures, similar accounts persist. Encounters with craft, beings, messages that bypass language. The Ariel case stands out for its documentation, the volume of witnesses, the clarity of their accounts, and the involvement of serious investigators. But in many ways, it reflects a broader phenomenon, one that challenges the boundaries of how we define reality. Dismissal remains the easiest option. But for those willing to look closely, patterns begin to emerge. Science seeks explanations. It thrives on evidence, on repeatable results. But the Ariel incident sits in a space where evidence and experience collide, where conventional frameworks fail to fully account for what happened. This doesn't make it any less real for those who lived it, but it does reveal the limitations of how we choose to categorize the unexplained. As our understanding of consciousness, perception, and even reality itself evolves, cases like Ariel may one day be viewed through a different lens. For now, they remain as challenging to our assumptions as ever. The Ariel School Incident is not a story of believers and skeptics. It's a record of testimony, of human experience. Children who, with no agenda, shared what they saw and felt, and a world that largely chose to look away. Whether we are ready to face these kinds of accounts says more about us than it does about the phenomenon itself. Listening, truly listening, is an act of humility. And in cases like Ariel, perhaps it's also an act of responsibility. Before we end, a word of thanks to Randall Nickerson, the director of Ariel Phenomenon. His work has been essential in documenting the story. with care and respect. You can find Aerial Phenomenon on Apple TV and Amazon Prime. Links are in the description below. My name is Zane. This is the Skyburst Podcast. Until next time, stay curious and stay critical. Cheers.